Welcome to Hassle-Free RE, the show where we share tips, tricks, and stories from the short-term rental industry and business alike. Hosted by Dave Menapace and Will Van Wickler. They'll help you navigate the exciting and ever-evolving world of short-term rentals. Whether you're a seasoned host or just starting out, they've got something just for you. In each episode, they'll bring you insider insights, expert advice, and real-life stories from hosts and industry professionals who have been through it all. They'll cover everything from maximizing your rental income and profits to creating unforgettable guest experiences and handling unexpected day-to-day challenges with ease. Are you ready to discover the secrets to running a successful short-term rental business without the hassle? Then let's get started. This is Hassle-Free RE.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hassle-Free RE. I'm Dave Menapace, one of your hosts, own five-star co-host, property management company based here in New England, as well as one of the co-founders of Launchpad Consulting, the country's first short-term rental consulting firm. And I am joined here by my main man, New England's #1 STR realtor, Mr. Will Van Wickler. Will, how's it going, my man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? Good to see you.
Doing good. We'll get the elephant out of the room. Will's internet's a little funny today, so you're not seeing him, but you'll hear him. And we'll leave it at that.
It's a face for radio. That's right.
I'm really excited for today's show, even though we have a funny topic to be excited about. Want me to jump right in, Will? I'll give it to the
Let's
people.
hit it.
All right. So, we started talking about this last week. We were talking about safety at short-term rentals. And a lot of that came from a presentation I saw by a gentleman named Justin Ford. Justin Ford actually works for Breezeway. Some people might use Breezeway in their technology in their short-term rental business. But Justin Ford is a short-term rental safety consultant expert. His background is fireman and EMT. He's actually been in this space for about 10, 12 years. And it is fascinating when you start getting into the topic of STR safety. And it's a really big blind spot for a lot of us owners and co-hosts, because at the end of the day, the home, especially a new home that guests have only been in for that day or a couple of days, tends to be one of the most dangerous places ever, to be totally honest. And today, we're going to go through a really interesting checklist. It's long, it's 12 pages. We're not going to go through all of it, but we're going to go through some highlights that Justin Ford has put together. And it's going to help you start to think about things in your own home that you own and or your own homes that you manage. And, as a property manager, you really need to be an advocate for guest safety. And on the realtor side, these are going to be important things for you to start to pinpoint and see. And when you're walking a home for a client, and potentially having a budget for bringing certain things up to a level of safety standard that may never show up on a home inspection, but could be really important and save a lot of people trouble or a lawsuit or potentially guests dying, which is unfortunately a real thing.
And it just makes things easier. I mean, some of this is just makes your life easier as a remote manager or co-host. I mean, even things as simple as marking the property, exterior lighting, things like that, which is interesting.
Totally. 100%. Will and I both have this checklist here. If anybody ever wants this checklist or access to it, shoot me an email or reach out at davemenapace.com or reach out to Will at willvanwickler.com. We'll be happy to share it with you or have a conversation with you or make an introduction to Justin Ford himself. Will, why don't we start on page 2 of this checklist? And what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to kind of go through some high-level things on the exterior of the home, followed by the interior of the home. And this will start to get you thinking about, do you have exposure anywhere that could ultimately lead to a lawsuit? And what I'll say is the statistics show that 30% of your guests are 60 years old or over, and 70% of guests drink while they're on vacation. And at least 30% of those don't normally drink any other time of the year. So, what I'm getting at is that, safety and security is really important. People are not thinking, they're putting their full trust in you when they go into your home and vacation there. They're not necessarily thinking about their own safety. They're making a lot of assumptions that you've done all these things, and you really want to take that to heart, and it is important. So, walkways and driveways. It says here, people that are 60 years or older are more prone to trips and falls than others. Makes sense, right? So, know your demographic. And when you look outside walkways and driveways, what they're really trying to get you to call out for, and decks, we'll say decks too. Is there any tree root damage on a driveway where you have, cracked driveway, places people can trip? I think up in Maine, we see a lot of black ice. Is there the potential for black ice? And do you need to get that driveway sanded? And how about on your walkway? In Cape Cod, we have a lot of walkways that are brick, and that brick takes a beating year in, year out. And it makes me think of a few properties that I manage where honestly that walkway and patio needs to be completely ripped up, or we just have an appetite, or we just have a situation where somebody could really get hurt just from tripping and falling alone. What do you think, Will, on that? Oh, Mr. Will, you might be on mute. All right, well, we'll keep running. I know Will's internet was having a little bit of trouble today. Exterior lighting. This is another one. Up in Maine and in Cape Cod, these places we manage, exterior lighting, it's not motion sensor, so it's not going on, or, a lot of owners are looking to save money and turn those exterior lights off when they're not home, which is fine. However, you get a last minute booking, especially in the winter. What you don't want is for a guest to show up and have all the lights off, not know where to go, potentially trip and fall. I find that it's really beneficial to throw LED bulbs in all of the exterior lights so that the cost for keeping those on 24/7 is very, very low, and make it so no matter what, that exterior area is well lit, and it makes it so people can get into the home easily. They can find where they need to go. I'm always a huge fan of putting lighting on exterior fencing that might surround a backyard, just so people can stay oriented, because you have to remember they are not as used to your property as you are. And I will say, a lot of times for us home buyers that are buying these homes remote or living across the country, which is really a common thing, having somebody that can go and do a check like this to see, hey, drive up to my home at night. Can you find the house? Is there lettering on the mailbox? Can somebody access the door easily? Is there an exterior motion sensor light that'll turn on so guests can find where they're going? All really, really important. Let's hit on exterior furniture. A lot of times at these properties, it can, especially for owners, it can be a set it and forget it. Buy the furniture, leave it in there. If it's broken, let me know. However, I do find, cleaners are not inspecting every single piece of furniture that you have to see if it's broken or not. So having a quality inspector or going in and checking it yourself to make sure that these exterior pieces of furniture and really interior pieces of furniture, that they're all functioning, that there's no loose legs, that somebody's not going to sit on the chair and it's going to explode on them, which unfortunately does happen at times. Really, really important. And so you don't have to overthink the outdoor furniture and indoor furniture or anything like that, but it is good to have that checked at least monthly, in my opinion.
I think the other thing is too, people have all the cheap furniture outside, and those screws
Yeah.
strip out so easily. And I've literally seen
Yeah.
people fall in these chairs. So I think the monthly check is something I didn't even think about, but it's so true.
It's
These
really
things aren't
easy.
designed to be used every day.
Totally. Or like in Cape Cod, we get a lot of people that buy the $20 plastic Adirondack chairs, which is fine. I find it's best to just replace those annually. Buy 5 new ones every year and throw out the old ones, right? Because those things have a very short shelf life. As we continue on, let's talk barbecue grills. Oh man, in general, charcoal grills, don't use them. They're not recommended at short-term rentals. A lot of people don't understand how to use a charcoal grill, or they burn themselves, or they throw out the discarded charcoal and it can start a fire. But generally, so really it's safest to stick with gas or electric grills.
I would say, and charcoal grills fall in the same classification to me as like interior wood burning fireplaces, right? Or wood stoves. People do not know how to use them. They don't.
Totally. I absolutely agree. Now, if you're going to have a grill in general, which in the New England markets we're in, it's a very good idea to have one. Guests really appreciate them. A couple things that can lead to fires, right? You want to make sure that that grease catch at the bottom is changed out probably at least once a month, and that grill is really cleaned off well in between every group of guests. Put it on your cleaner's checklist. And lastly, make sure that grill is at least, I think it says here, 9 feet away from any like it has vertical clearance. There's nothing above it. It's at least 9 to 10 feet away from a home. Make sure that it's away from anything that could catch fire. You don't want grease dripping down on your deck and causing the home to light on fire. And what I will say, one story he shared was that at a house in Florida, it starts raining. The guest brought the grill down under the deck. Now this grill is far away from the deck before. The owner did everything they were supposed to. The guest brought that grill underneath the deck to stay out of the rain. He ended up catching the porch on fire, and then his wife, who was inside, who had just had surgery, couldn't get up and out of the home in time and ended up passing away because the home burned down. So these things do happen, and it's really important. While it doesn't happen frequently, really, really important to make sure that you're in the clear, maybe securing that grill down to wherever it is that you want to stay. All really, really important.
Yeah, I also see people moving grills like closer to the house in the winter because it's cold, and then burning the siding, or even putting those small like gas fireplaces underneath the deck so it's not raining. Those are just all things that they don't seem like a big deal, but I mean, that story right there is just proof, crazy things can happen, right?
Totally. So as we're going to kind of move through this a little quicker, but the last one, a lot of our houses, right, they have fire pits. They have wood burning fire pits. Now, gas fire pits are probably a bit safer. They can be a little bit closer to the home, kind of like a grill. But the wood burning fire pits, they really should be at least 25 feet away from the home, according to Justin here. And one of two things, guest has to be able to extinguish that fire. So they suggest putting it in an area that a hose can reach. So there's always a hose nearby, or having those 5-gallon pails available. So several gallons available to be able to put the fire out when it's done. And I think a lot of times we think, oh yeah, add a fire pit. And even if it's far away from the home, guests need to have a way to easily extinguish the fire, or it might not be a good idea to have a fire pit in the first place.
That's a really good one right there. It's just having the hose nearby. And I go through short-term rentals every day, and you do too. And how many of those do you actually see, with the proper equipment nearby? Very few.
Totally. Now, one that I want to hit on, we're in this amenities section, which is really interesting. They say sort of off the bat, you really shouldn't allow renters to use bikes, watercraft, or golf carts. Now, in Florida, it's really popular to allow guests to rent a golf cart, and you should have proper inspection program after every single guest. What's interesting for bikes, watercraft, we don't have any of those, so we're not going to go into that too deep today, but bikes, I do have several homes that allow renters to use bikes, and I've started actually telling owners no more of that. Reason being is in Cape Cod, a lot of people are drinking. And the other thing it says here is if you allow bikes, it should be inspected after every single guest. If you don't have somebody to inspect them, you probably shouldn't let them be rented out. And the other thing it says here, which may throw you off, is must include helmet sizes for all potential renters. I've never walked into a house and seen 10 to 12 different helmets to accommodate all those bikes. I say get rid of the bikes altogether, and they're really hard to maintain in the first place.
Right. And I'd say for people that own like lakefront property, like I do, the kayaks, stand-up paddleboards, things like that, you need a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket for every single person that's staying there. And that's just not reality. And they're really dangerous, right, if you don't know how to use them. So I mean, as nice as they are, I think, see you later, bye, in my eyes.
Totally. Last one on the exterior, I think here is, hot tubs and pools. They are different. You don't need as many safety procedures when it comes to the hot tub as you do a pool. We now manage 3 houses that have pools. And what I will say is really important about that is making sure you have a properly identify the depths of the pool at the different depth points is really important. And then you also have a safety ring as well as one of those long poles with a grabber at the end and some like swim at your own risks and signs. And lastly, if you're going to have any amenities like this at all, I think it's a requirement to have guest agreements in place that guests have to sign before stepping foot on that property that is going to release you of liability for their negligence. Because if you don't, even if you have all these things, like you need that layer of protection, in my opinion.
What do you think about signage, right? So it doesn't mention a whole lot about signage, but what I'm starting to see walking properties is a lot of people are now putting up proper signage, having people sign waivers, which is totally a shift I've seen like in the last year, even at lakefront property. People are putting no lifeguard on duty signs, things like that. So it seems like people are starting to get the idea.
I totally agree. Yep, I love it. And honestly, it helps the guests become good guests. One really interesting data point that Justin shared in his presentation was that people are looking for really safe homes. And actually, if you put the word safe in the listing description, it tends to rise onto the first page of Airbnb a lot quicker because safe makes people interested in booking. But what I'll say is don't just go doing that to get bookings. Make sure you implement the majority of a list like this so you can really be the poster child for safety at a home. And guests will really appreciate that.
That's pretty clever. That's like people adding newly renovated in their description, and it's not actually renovated. So if you're going to do it, you might as well go all the way. And then if we're going to switch to another topic, I'd say just real quick, hitting on something interesting, I think that's not on this list, but like the hot tub conversation is I had a conversation with an electrician the other day. The National Electric Code has actually changed where the hot tub connections that are typically under decks, they have to be outside of reach for the hot tub, because what's happening is people are putting their beer cans on the hot tub disconnect and getting electrocuted. So I think as part of this pool conversation, that's something that totally caught me off guard of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a lot of houses in the mountain markets, or electricians are putting these disconnects, and just something to think about, right? As a change going in. Yeah.
So I never would have thought of that. I mean, I know
Me
ours
neither.
were on the side of the home, so you had to really get out of and I guess on that topic too, this is less on safety, but when you have a home and you offer amenities like a hot tub, give guests a place to hang their towels, give guests a place to put their beverages down. Right? If you have to build some tables around the hot tub, do it, right? Because what's going to end up happening is, like, let's say somebody has a glass bottle of beer and they want to drink that beer. That glass is coming into that hot tub no matter how much signage says you can't. It just is. And if that thing breaks, it's a recipe for disaster in that hot tub. And so I will say, like, taking a step back, give people places to put things always. Right? Always, always, always. People don't make the most sound decisions when they're 10, 12 beers deep. And it doesn't mean that they're bad guests. It could mean that we didn't do a great job as owners of accommodating a guest's needs. All right, moving along. As we go into the interior, one really big one that I do feel strongly about are fire extinguishers and their locations. So often, every September and October, we walk every single property and we see exactly, we look at their fire extinguishers, we see if they've been expired, we make sure they're accessible. And since learning, what I'll say is that every house always only had one fire extinguisher. And we have totally changed our tune on that. And something we're going around and doing this fall is every home needs to have multiple fire extinguishers. And not only that, they actually need to be, I have them, like 3 is perfect. Have one within 60 feet of where any cooking is going to happen, usually like right in the kitchen. But it actually has to be hung on the wall so people can see it and go and fight that fire. And then I always say one near each of the 2 exterior doors, posted about 4 to 6 feet high so it can be easily grabbed. And if you have an outdoor fire pit, go and post one on the fence near it, or put one like on the exterior somewhere so it can easily be grabbed. You cannot have enough fire extinguishers. And I know they don't look sexy, so maybe you don't have them in, put them up before you do your professional photos, but making it so a guest can grab it. It's not every day that someone goes and fights a fire, and they're certainly not going searching underneath your kitchen sink for the fire extinguisher. Put them where people are likely to pass it on their way of running away from the fire.
Super clever. And then make sure they're up to date, right? How many of them in houses do you see that are 10 years expired, right? Pretty funny, but big deal.
Totally. Let's see. Let's keep going down here. Portable heaters, just a few, portable heaters. It says here, recommends removing all portable heaters. They really don't have a place in your home. If they fall and they don't have the auto shut off, you're going to wind up with a fire in there. And it's so often that guests forget to turn those things off when they leave. Not only is it crushing your electricity, but it's a safety hazard. So I say remove all portable heaters. If a home's not getting enough heat, put some electric baseboard heat in that specific room. Let's see.
What do you think about bunk beds? I think that's an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
Every single house has them.
Yeah, I'm scrolling right down to where the bunk beds were. So I love bunk beds. I love them as a way of being able to accommodate more guests. I also think kids really love bunk beds. It's something unique. They usually don't have it in their home. What's interesting is there are guidelines for this though. And I think these are really, really important. What I'll also say is my preference for bunk beds are the ones where like the bottom bunk is at floor, like on floor level, and the top bunk is about 4 feet high.
Right.
They don't look the sexiest. Obviously you and I have done some content, Will, on some of those really, really cool custom wood bunk beds that do really well. I love those to death. I really do.
Right.
But it's really important here. We're going to go through a few bullet points that I think are really, really important if you're going to have bunk beds in your home. It says the upper bunk should have a guardrail on each side of the bed. Pretty obvious, I think. The bunk bed needs to be secured against a wall. You don't want to have a freestanding bunk bed in the middle of the room. It has a tendency to fall over, which can obviously result in injury. The upper edge of the guardrail should be no less than 5 inches above the top surface of the mattress. I will say, I rarely see that.
Right. Yeah, we talk about guardrails. I mean, how many do you see that? I mean, yeah, maybe they're there, but you could just flip right over onto the floor, and then you're 5, 6, 7 feet up in the air, especially with those super cool wood ones. So that is one that is commonly missed.
Totally. 100%. Ladders should be provided and should be structurally sound and are securely attached to the bunk beds. I will say a lot of these custom bunk beds, you almost have to like climb up one side of the bunk bed to get in there. Not only is it dangerous to guests, it's dangerous to your cleaners and whoever's going up there to do the bedding, anything like that. And lastly, all ceiling fans in a bedroom with bunk beds should be removed altogether. It's complete hazard up there.
And I'm seeing a lot of people now do custom bunks with steps going up, which seems to kind of get rid of a lot of the challenges for both cleaners and guests, which I'm a huge fan of. So I think that's a good trend that's catching on.
Here's a dark horse one for you. Carpets and floor rugs. So it says here, in many short-term rentals, carpets are placed about for aesthetic more often than they are for necessity. Which is fine, but what most property owners don't realize is that loose throw rugs and area carpets with curled edges or folds lead to the highest risks for injuries in short-term rentals. So what they say here is either remove all of them, or I know in our STRs, we have these really cool carpets that they sit on Velcro, like they're like all Velcro down, so the corners never fray like that, and they're actually really easy to throw into the washing machine and get cleaned. Ruggable, that's what it is.
Yeah.
My number one suggestion of if you're going to put rugs in an STR, get ruggable, because they're Velcro down, they're secured down. You're never going to have to worry about that.
And I think, when we talk about 60-year-old guests drinking, right? That's a very easy way to trip, especially when it's dark.
Absolutely. So a couple more, and then we'll round it out for the day. The laundry room. So it says here, nearly 17,000 home clothes dryer fires are reported each year. These clothes dryer fires cause around 51 deaths, 300 injuries, and $236 million in property loss. So about $250 million a year in property loss. Unsurprising, the leading cause of these fires at 34% is the failure to clean dryer vents. STRs should recommend the rental property be on an annual cleaning regime for dryer exhaust vents, and it goes without question, your cleaners should be cleaning out the lint section every single turnover. But this is an amazing preventative maintenance thing. And honestly, I would say twice a year. It's not very expensive to get somebody in there and snake out the dryer vent, but it can be a massive, massive liability just by having it, just from normal use. So a really important one there, I think. We threw a lot at everybody during this, but these safety precautions, while it's almost like 12 pages of checklist, I think it's really important. And a lot of these things can honestly be summarized into pure common sense. They really, really can. But so often this isn't top of mind when we're setting up our STR, and it's definitely not top of mind 5-6 years down the road after launching, because generally nothing bad happens. A couple guest party, things break, but overall the homes do what you set out for them to do. But circling back at least annually and checking a list like this and really having a hard look on if you meet the updated criteria keeps you out of harm's way when or if something bad does happen at your home.
Totally agree. I think this list is really good to run through, and we should make sure everybody gets a copy of it. So if you reach out to either of us, we'll provide you a link, and really just good content to run through and a good refresher, especially as we go into busy season in the mountain markets and as it starts to slow down in the beach and lake markets. Now is a good time to reinvest and make sure you don't get sued this next season.
That's right. That's right. So my man, Will, somebody wants to buy a house or talk shop with you. How can they find you?
Yeah, just book a call on my website, willvanwickler.com. We can jump on and talk about the great markets we cover and see about getting you sorted this year. And Dave, consulting is taking off for you. You've got a lot of management stuff going on. How do we find you?
Yeah, just hit me up, davemenapace.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can book a call directly with me. You can email me from there. You can find my socials from there. Some folks might have noticed that my Facebook went away. Don't worry, it's coming back. I didn't do it on purpose. Facebook shut us down for some verification issue that is getting sorted out. But yeah, so I'll leave everyone with that. But
you're not selling Bitcoin. You're only slinging short-term rentals. That's it.
Yes, hard assets only. So with that, Will, my man, have a great week. If anybody wants to catch this recording, just hit up Hassle-Free RE, the podcast. Anywhere that you listen to your podcast, we'd super appreciate a 5-star review. It helps us help more people. And with that, everyone, happy hosting.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Hassle-Free RE. We hope you found today's tips and stories as inspiring and useful as I did. Remember, success in the short-term rental industry is all about learning, adapting, and staying one step ahead. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review or comment on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Plus, we'd love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And follow us at Hassle-Free RE on social media for more tips and updates. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep it hassle-free.